Hello, welcome back. Hope you're enjoying the reading. We're now going to do chapter 17, John. I don't know if Sobe's enjoying the story or if he's just sleeping through it. Let's see how he does with this chapter. Chapter 17, John. John had light brown hair and a round head. He was Joe's best friend. John was one of the smartest boys in Mrs. Jewell's class, but he had one problem. He could only read words written upside down. Nobody ever wrote anything upside down, but it was only a little problem. John was still in the high reading group. He just turned his book upside down. It was easier for John to turn his book upside down than to learn to read correctly. But the easiest way isn't always the best way. Mrs. Jewell said, John, you can't go on reading like this. You can't spend the rest of your life turning your books upside down. Why not? Asked John. Because I said so, Mrs. Jewell. Besides, what happens when I write something on the blackboard? You can't turn the blackboard upside down. No, I guess you're right, said John. I know I'm right, said Mrs. Jewell. You are going to have to learn to stand on your head. John couldn't stand on his head. He had given up trying. You would have too if you had fallen over as many times as he had. Joe was John's best friend. He could stand on John's head. Every time John fell over, Joe stood on his head. After all, what are best friends for? My head is too round, Mrs. Jewell. I can't stand on it, said John. Of course you can, John, said Mrs. Jewell. If you can stand on your head, so can you. If Joe can stand on your head, so can you. It's easy, John, said Joe. I can't, John repeated. I always fall over. Nonsense, said Mrs. Jewell. All you have to do is find your center of balance. Now, up you go. John put his round head on the floor and swung his legs up. He fell right over. Then Joe stood on John's head. See, John, it's easy. Nothing to it, Joe said. We'll help you, John, said Mrs. Jewell. Joe, get off of John's head and get me the pillow from under my desk. Nancy, Calvin, come here and give us a hand. Mrs. Jewell took the pillow from Joe and set it on the floor. All right, John, we'll surround you, she said. We won't let you fall. John put his head on the pillow and swung his legs up. He started to fall one way, but Nancy pushed him back up. Then he started to fall another way, but Calvin straightened him out. John kept falling a little bit this way and that way until at last he found his center of balance. Hey, look at me, John, said John. I'm up. I'm really up. I'm standing on my head. I found my center of balance. It's beautiful. I can read the blackboard. Hey, Calvin, bring me a book. And you don't have to turn it upside down. Ha ha. Hey, who? Ah! Bam. While Calvin went to go get the book, John fell flat on his face. You better stay off my head, Joe, he warned. Are you all right, John? Asked Mrs. Jewell. Yes, I think so. I feel a little funny. Hey, I can still read the blackboard and I'm not upside down. I can read right side up now. When I fell, I must have flipped my brain or something. That's wonderful, John, said Mrs. Jewell. Here, put the pillow back under my desk. As a reward, you may have a Tootsie Roll Pop. They are in the coffee can on the top of my desk. John placed the pillow on top of his desk. Then he looked under the desk, but he couldn't find the Tootsie Roll Pops anywhere.